Okay, hi there. Glad to see you. And so just join me. I was starting a few minutes early. What is little bugger is uncooperative? I've got three of us, but I'm not getting my participants to pop up for me. That's a little frustrating. Well, okay. All right, folks. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Now, as I mentioned on Monday, we're at week 6, and of course, next week is spring break, and we have three other cases that I want to talk about. One of them we mentioned a little bit briefly, and then which is ice cold, and that's over in pages 323 through 324, the background for them. And pardon me, then RMC, which is 324 to page 327. So it's over there, I think, in chapter 7. And then Martin Beck. And so we're going to talk about those cases again. Now, again, where we are in housekeeping terms, you've got these cases due, Martin Beck, ice cold, and RMC. Okay, and you need to upload those. You got 2 exams, 3, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, because we're off next week, so you gotta get it easy. And I've got the RMC without setup costs that you can upload there. Martin Beck, same story. And I think also I have in there an ice cold file. Although actually, we're just really going to go. Yeah, I have ice cold explained, so we can. You've got the uploads to do for the case, okay? And so you've got Martin Beck. I think the only one I didn't create was Martin Beck. And that one, let me see if I had you do some things for it. Let me go over for a moment to the syllabus so I keep us all straight on what's going on. Let's go to the files section and we'll take a look at that. All right, and see if I can find Martin Beck. And let's see if we do. Martin Beck explained. Okay, we've got that. So we have ice cold, RMC, and Martin Beck. All right, well, I just want to take a minute and we're going to take a look there at the textbook. And again, ice cold brings us to a different kind of decision variable that we're a decision-making situation that we're talking about. And then in this case, it's capital budgeting, okay? And this is going to be utilizing a binary approach where we'll either accept or reject or undertake or not or defer capital project. And over here on table 7.1 and page 326 of the text, they give us the projects, they give us the present value, okay, for each of those: plant, expansion, warehouse, new machinery, new product, okay, and then they show us the capital requirements per year, okay. And so this is the NPV we're going to get up here from each of the projects, and then this is how much we've got to invest each year, and this shows us the capital budget. Now we have capital rationing, and let's take a look for a moment at year 1. We've got the plant expansion, the warehouse expansion, new machinery, and so we're going $15,000, $35,000, $50,000 for year 1, but we only have $40,000. So we're going to have to engage in what we call capital rationing, and we're going to have to defer a project, okay, or change. Now, if we assume, excuse me, that we've got to have the investment. In other words, we can't knock off the plant expansion. We can't knock 10 grand off of it and be okay. Then we have these constraints. And I'm emphasizing this for a very simple reason. Folks, this is of no use if the numbers are no good. So part of this course, and I really try, and you hear me emphasize it a lot is getting the numbers put together, okay? And that's important, because if it's garbage in, it's garbage out, okay? And so they show us the 0-1, a binary decision, go, no go, and they show us how that works. And they use the term if rejected. When I was going through my master's in finance at Webster University, I had the guy who wrote the book on capital budgeting, and basically he said, rather than reject, use the term we've deferred, okay? Because you may, to say I've just rejected it means I'll never try it, and that's probably not good language. But the authors, as many do, use that terminology, and they show us the capital budgeting problem, okay? And here we want to maximize, okay, our return, and here is the capital available, okay? And those act as constraints. And then we have issues of fixed cost, and they talk about that, okay? And that will take us over into the RMC problem. Now, let's go back. I'm going to go back here for a moment and go into the files. In fact, go to the modules section, and I want to take a look at ice cold for a moment. I'll show you that. And let's go down to module 6. Want that. Academic bean counting. All right. Now, here we go. And let's take a look at this file, okay? And in fact, for ice cold, this is what you want to download and save to your machine and your device, okay? And then load it back up. And so I'm going to go through the usual business, so you don't end up with a system file that I can't read and you can't get credit for. So I'm going to save it as, okay, ice cold explained, and I'm going to put Harmon Keith. All right. You can put your last name. You can put my name if you want to honor me. I don't care. Of course, I have a great tinge of sadness today. Because we lost Stephen Hawking. So in the past month, we've lost 2 people that I think God talked with a lot, Stephen Hawking and Billy Graham. And 2 people who just, the Bible says we often entertain angels among us unaware. And I got to think that from what came out of the mouths and the minds of both of those people and the lives they lived, they were very special people. Billy Graham had the burden of traveling all over the world without his family, giving up a lot to go preach, and Stephen Hawking dealt with incredible physical adversity. Yet he's the Einstein, but we haven't had anybody like him since Einstein. And so an extremely intelligent person, and very inspirational. And so it's kind of a sad time. And also, if I'm not mistaken, today is the day that Einstein died. So it's not, it's been a rough month. So anyway, that all being said, so I've done that riff. And let's hope that Dr. Hawking and Professor Hawking knew the Lord. You don't get any indication of that because he had some questions. So we don't know. Billy Graham, we do know for sure. And how do I know? Well, the Bible, as they say, tells me so. Okay, now I'm going to save this to my desktop. Okay, and I'm going to close it off. All right, and I'm going to diminish my browser and go down to my desktop. And of course, I do that so you can see Cardinal Buddy. See, he gets very lonely, and that's why he likes screencasts. It's a chance to smile at everybody and say hi. I'm being silly, I know. I understand. Well, let's take a look at this again now. And I give you, and I explain it to you, okay, in terms of, for example, at cell F20, we enter a 1, and we see what do I get if I put in new product research. So I'm going to put a 1 in here, all right, and then I'm going to run. I'll click data, and I'll click on the solver. I don't want data analysis tools, I want solver. And I'll click solve. And they give us a solution, okay, for that. But notice what happens here. We get 177 in terms of a max net present value. And so we put in new project research, all right, and we get a net present value of 177. And I'm going to put in a 0 now, and notice what happens. Okay. Now, you said the difference between, and this is important for you to see, the difference between the net present value, the net present value of this project, okay, when we add in new product research, it goes to 177, so it goes to a higher value. The problem is this: I only have so much available capital, okay, that I can use. Here, if I do the new product research, I'm using 50,000. You say the financial data in the thousands. So I use 50,000, but I only have 40,000 available. And I'm going to assume I can't make any adjustments here. So that's really all that it's about. Now, and again, you see, to work within these constraints, okay, and here are the left hand and the right hand sides of the equation. And this, we've got to have the left hand side's got to be equal to or lesser than the right hand side. And notice they'll give us the sum products, G8, G10. And so that's again, helps us do capital rationing. And and one of the things that I ask you about, okay, why not try new machinery? Why not try, why not try new product research? Or why would I eliminate one of them? Well, I do for a simple reason. They give me the lowest return. A 4-year horizon on capital budgeting. And the truth is, you're really, a 4-year horizon is not very much, but we get the lowest in NPV on those. Now, you say, all right, what else might impact this net present value figure? Well, what else might impact it would be the hurdle rate or the rate of return that we require, okay, and that is the discount rate when we do a time value of money problem, okay, and if we don't, and this is why when you take finance, if you haven't had it, you're going to go through all these hoops and gyrations to figure out what is the company's weighted average cost of capital, because that's what you'll want to apply. For publicly traded firms, it's pretty easy. For private firms, it's kind of tough. And my rule of thumb, and what I always heard was, the highest rate at which you can borrow. In other words, an interest rate if you're a privately held company, or the best return you've ever had on a company's investment. And you apply that as the hurdle rate, i.e. the capital, the discount rate. Okay, so that could impact the NPVs. So you can see how versatile a tool this is. You can also see that, we have these opportunities. If we want, we can accept, or we can defer, and so that gives us the net present value given the solutions. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on solver again. All right, and again we assume a simplex. Today is Pi Day. Oh, I forgot. Today is Pi Day. And I'm going to go ahead and I've got the answer report, and we've got that. So I don't know that we really don't need to do a sensitivity analysis. We'll keep the solver because I can do it right here. Watch. If I put in for new product research and violate the assumptions, okay, I do get the 177. I get a higher net present value, but it comes at a price, all right? And that is I'm going to have to change the investment here somewhere, or I'm going to have to increase the amount of capital available. So I can do a sensitivity analysis, just kind of proxy one doing it that way. Well, that's what I want you to upload for ice cold. So you ought to have that on your device or upload it. And it, of course, is due this week. So that's one of those binary application again to a capital budgeting exercise. And I'll open this back up, okay? And just so that you can see, they show us the solution for the ice cold refrigerator company problem, the optimal objective value. Optimal meaning we get the best results given what we have to work with. Okay, and so that's the ice cold. That's the ice cold that's the ice cold problem. Okay, and you can see we have these constraints. And we do, and it does identify, this is using the lingo, this does identify some slack and surplus that we may or may not have on each of those constraints. But I'm not sure how realistic that truly is. You'd have to play with it and see what you're going to get. But my hunch would be by the time you get to that point, and people put those budgets together, they're what they are. And again, it's the veracity and the robustness, if you will, the truthfulness or the relevance of the data and their robustness. Robust meaning, to me, you have somehow either gotten them from historical data or you've proxied history by doing some type of simulation. Or maybe you've gotten some experts together, or you have industry standards. Could be one of those. Well, the RMC problem, they talk about this. This is the issue of fixed costs. And here we have, again, one of these load balancing problems where they have the tons of fuel additive produced, tons of solvent, and tons of carpet cleaning fluid. So these folks process these chemicals, and they have three products, and they begin to walk us through that. Of course, here's the maximization, okay, and they show us subject and they show us the constraints, where F, S, and C have to be equal to or greater than 0, and they give us the solution there. The textbook talks about it. Well, let's go back over for just a moment, and I'm going to go back over here to the modules, okay? And here we'll want to take a look at RMC. And it may have occurred to you that so many times, many of these problems are load balancing problems, okay? And it shouldn't be lost on you. When you take courses, okay, and you might hear me talk about information flows, okay? or if you take this course, shipping problems and transportation problems, or if you're in accounting and finance and you talk about cash flows or converting inventory to cash and then back to inventory again, that alludes to the dynamic nature of running a business. Okay, and so it's not just static, it's stuff happening. And so we always have to be mindful of the fact that this is kind of, when you run a business, you're riding a wild bull. Okay, and if you're running a business in a highly volatile or highly competitive market, if the bull throws you off, you won't land in a nice soft patch of dirt and have clowns to come save you. Yes, I've been to the rodeo a few times, as they say. You may land in the briar patch with a whole bunch of stickers. So you have to be, so that's why this is so important that you understand this course is not to make you a geek, it's to make you a little bit deeper thinker about your situation. Well, we're going to look at RMC, okay? And RMC is the kind of problem, okay, where we have fixed costs, and then we have the issue of setup costs. They are a batch producer, so they run their fuel additive, then they have to do the solvent base and the carpet cleaning fluid, okay? And now I'm going to make a confession to you, but I don't think it's that terribly bad. Martin Luther was a lover of beer, okay? And I'm going to have to tell you that, accept it or not, you as Protestants, he probably with his beer-tainted breath tacked the 95 Theses on the wall. Nonetheless, I lived in St. Louis for nearly 25 years. You cannot live in St. Louis if you don't, 1, go see the Blues play hockey, 2, go see the Cardinals play. The Rams were there for a while. I went to see them play. Grants Farm, okay, and the Anheuser-Busch plant, which in St. Louis is the original headquarters of the whole corporation. And so you take a tour. What was really fascinating to me, okay, was the work they had to do setup costs, okay, because when they make beer, all right, they have these giant mixing vats, and one of the most interesting things they showed us was how they have people who go inside who are wearing very soft cloth, non-lint garments, okay, and they wash the vat out, and then they go and they take a cloth and they shine it. And they explained it to us, and they said the reason they do that is because as they pump that liquid through, they want it to go through with as little effort as possible, because then it was just a matter of, it was cheaper to push that through. It's kind of like it was aerodynamic, was how they explained it to us. I thought, well, this is incredible. And I asked them about their setup costs for their different products, and it was a very informative experience. And I came away thinking, these people are really, really interesting. And then at the end of it all, okay, of course they have some product, and they walked us into a hypothetical convenience store or grocery store, and they showed us how they handle quality, and what they told us, okay, was if a rep from a brewery went out to a distributor and found one can of beer that was out of date, they pulled every single one of those out of date cans of beer on the spot at the retailers, took them and put in fresh. That's how fanatical they are about quality. Okay, so as I looked at this, I thought setup cost this thing again. I thought, wow, this is just so interesting And again, I'm probably sure with that, a colleague that I taught with at National University when I was up there in the 80s. He grew up in Gary, Indiana, and his daddy worked in the steel mills. And so he took me one time to go see steel. I'd never been in a steel mill, and it was amazing. It's a long run, continuous thing, and they don't do batches, so that setup costs for them. And I remember talking with the plant manager who graciously gave us his time. And he said, well, someday we may have to go to making batches of different type of products, size or tensile strength or whatever. But he said, right now we're just like, the phone company. We just make steel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, sadly, I'm sure that's not the case now. But this issue of setup costs is really, really important. And I mentioned this the other day. I think it's going to be the same if you're Carl's Jr., if you're Arby's, you got a new sandwich. They got the meat. You're Carl's Jr., whatever. So we always have to be thinking about this. So we look at the setup cost issues, okay, and they give us the solution to that problem, and then the maximum production that we can get per setup cost per product. And they walk us through the setup costs, okay? And then we create the maximum objective, i.e. the net profit. And we see that over here. We do see we can reduce some costs and get an optimal objective value. Now, let me go back over here to the module, and we're going to look at RMC. Okay, now I have two files for you: RMC without setup costs, RMC with setup costs. All right, and let's download, and we'll get this first one and download it and take a look at it. And I'm going to be a little bit slow to it. Here we go. Now, I don't care which one you upload of these to get the credit for the workshop. I could care less. But I do want to cover both of them with you. Okay? And so here we are. So I'm going to click up here. Move that invisible thing. You'll say enable editing. And I'm going to save it. And I'm going to call it Harmon Keith, and we'll put it up here in the desktop, and we'll save it. All right, now here we are. We have the net profit, and let's pop on. Let me pop this over and take a look at Solver. Okay. All right. And here we have the objective function. We want to maximize it by changing variables B19 through D19. And those are the tons produced. And we get so much profit per ton produced. Okay. This RMC case is quite similar to the Leisure Airlines case, where we're doing revenue maximization. And again, when I say it's a load-bearing issue, it's because we're trying to balance off. Now, in their case, they're trying to balance off fuel costs, i.e. distance. In this case, we're trying to balance off material requirements, but really profit per ton. So we want to maximize our profits, okay? And then we have our constraints. And notice we have the constraints for each of these materials, okay? And it gives us a max net profit. And the tons we're going to produce any solvent. We're going to produce additive and cleaning fluid, okay, if we want to maximize net profits under these conditions. And if you want, you can go ahead and run it. Now, I showed you, okay, and I give you some verbiage here about, setup costs as a binary choice, Okay, and that's over 326 and 327. And then the objective function, not the objective function. I apologize about that. Value per variable, and how we get a little bit of sensitivity. The setup cost reduced net profit. Okay, and we see this in the RMC setup cost. So I give you a little bit of verbiage there, and it's there for you to take a look at. Again, we've got the profit per ton, the solvent base, and for us, okay, the issue becomes, well, you know, we're going to get what we're going to get in terms of profit per ton. And I want to show you something here for just a second. This shows us the net profit per ton produced. That's how we ended up with our 1850. And of course, the sum product function used up here. We have one array times another array. That's all. And that's how we got and then we set in the constraints. And I'll show you that again. Okay, so this is RMC, okay, with the setup costs. Now, if we can batch produce, all the more better. I mean, if we can move away from batch production. So I've got this saved on my desktop. You could upload this one, or you can upload this other one we're going to look at without setup costs. So I'm not going to save that. And we'll go back here. And we'll take a look. Pop down over here. And we did it with, I think we did it without setup costs. Let me look at this for a minute. RMC. I pulled the one with setup costs, so we'll do without the setup costs. I apologize. All right, let's look at that. Download it. Like I said, either one of these is fine to upload. Okay. And here we have it without setup costs built in. Pardon me, with setup costs, excuse me. And here we, of course, have for the materials and the tons will produce and the profit per ton. Okay. And again, we get a little bit different. We get some nuances if we have the setup costs or we don't. Okay. And so that's really what we're looking at. So either one of them is fine to upload. Now, that's RMC. And the last one I want to take a look at is Martin Beck. And I want to just go over here for a moment. And let's see, Martin Beck's over in 327. And they show us the solution with the setup costs. This is RMC. Okay. Oh, this gets us into Martin Beck territory. But nonetheless, there we are with setup costs, RMC. Now, down here at the bottom of page, and this is going to be page, what is this, 327, 329, excuse me. They talk about this company, Martin Beck, that operates a plant in St. Louis, and they produce 30,000 units. I forget what it is they make, and they've got distribution centers. So we've got one of those issues, okay? And they've got some increased demand, so they're thinking about increasing their capacity, by constructing a new plant. Now, I want to stop for a moment and speak with you about that kind of an issue. These figures right here are based on a big assumption. And the assumption is that we can't increase the plant we have already. Okay? We can't make it larger, or it's running at capacity. Okay? Or some combination of the two of them. So we can't just, make it bigger. We've got to and make it a distribution center. We have to have some new plants. Okay, so we have basically, this is one of these issues where distribution issues, because of increased demand, mean I've got to move closer to the customer. Okay, and so they give us the proposed plants, the annual fixed cost. We treat these plants just like just like we would an inventory problem, where we have fixed costs. Okay, that's annual fixed costs, and then we have variable costs. Okay, and then here's the capacity. Now these figures here, when you go out to work and you hear people talk about capacity, always ask yourself, are they talking about the theoretical capacity, or are they talking about the real world operating capacity? And those are two different kinds of data. And the theoretical is, everything, all the equipment works like it should, people probably trained, etc. Now, the truth is, the newer the equipment, or whatever equipment you use, the better trained the people, the closer you're going to come on what we call the operating characteristics curve. You're going to get closer to that, although you'll never hit it. But you need to be prepared for less than optimal conditions. In other words, lower actual capacity. Okay. And so, in my experience, folks I've talked to, and when I've worked with some firms, as I told you, I worked with a firm that did cash flow. We did a cash flow analysis for mergers and acquisitions. These are the types of problems we ran into, because the people taking over, for example, a company that had a good brand, good product, a good name, but just wasn't robust. Management, for whatever reason, just was not going to grow the company, and so the folks came in bottom out to grow it. And so you had these issues of, we got to pump the capacity up so we can meet demand. Okay, now they show us also the distribution centers and the annual demand for each of those. Okay, and again, these are forecasts. These are not real numbers till you've sold all the units. So you'd want to make sure. And again, this is just an introduction to data science. Okay, management science. How you would get these annual demand figures or the annual capacity. That's an entire course, especially the annual demand is a course on forecasting, and you're going to have some forecasting problems here. But it really, to be an expert at, or really have a deep level expertise, it's a course. Most of these programs have that type, because you're doing some forecasting. Well, then we also have the distribution design issue. Okay, and again, this is we treat this as a binary decision, a go or no go. 1 if we go, 0 if we don't. Okay, now you've heard me say many times, the outcomes of decisions are distributed. They're not just black and white, but the go or no go is, you can't kind of just build half of a plant and then walk away. It doesn't work like that. you know, and if not, bad things happen to people that do that. And so, you know, you're looking at this distribution design, and they show the shipping costs. So they're walking us through the objective function verbally. They're walking us through now some of the constraints. Okay. And the shipping cost, obviously, is a variable cost. Now, this is something that, again, as we've talked about, and this goes back to chapter 1, you hear me say it over and over and over again, all right? When you are, part of the beauty of management science is we can build robust mathematical models that work fairly well. We can create a schematic like this that shows the distribution centers, that shows this network that we've got, okay? And here we come down, we see the capacity. Then, and those at these nodes, these are the plants. We see the arc, that is the distribution routes, okay? And then we see the demand at each of them. And so we can see plant 1, Detroit feeds Boston, Detroit feeds Atlanta, and Detroit feeds Houston. Now, other distribution centers do as well, okay? So this is very similar to problems we looked at before, and it's a load bearing issue again. How do I, you know, meet demand, run at capacity, and make sure that I minimize my costs? And so they show us those variables and the shipping cost with the notation. And then they show us the capacity issues, and again, using notation for Detroit, Toledo, etc. And then we get the solution for the Martin Beck company. This is using that lingo and the optimal value. Notice that we have no slack, no surplus, based upon what we have. And they give us explain about this. Y4, for example, that's Kansas City, and they're going to ship 20,000 units to Atlanta. All right. Now, I'm going to go back to the file. All right, and scroll down here back to Module 6. And we're going to see, we're going to take a look at that Martin Beck, all right? And you'll want to download that, I think, yeah, because it's going to also be due on the 16th. So download it. I'm going to download it to, you know, my desktop. I want to show it to you as well. Okay? And I'm going to save it as, save it on the desktop of my device. And just to be sure, I'm going to close it. Okay. And then I'm going to go down to my desktop and I'm going to find Martin Beck Explained. I'll open it up. And there we are. Now, as I mentioned here, we assume a plant at St. Louis and then proposed plants, okay? And notice we can put a 0 or a 1 in the array. And here are the decision variables in here. and see how it impacts the objective function. And notice we have our capacity, okay, and our fixed costs and the demand. And we're in cost minimization. Before we were looking at profit maximization, we're going to look at that. So I'm going to click on data, okay, and click on solver, and I can solve that. And it gives us the answer. If we want to play around with this, we can. Basically assumes that we're going to do, like I said, St. Louis, and then we look at these proposed plants in each of these places. And as again, we can do that by entering a 0 or a 1 in this array, H20, okay, H20 to H23. I apologize. So if we put a 1 here, let's see what happens. Our cost minimization goes up. So I'm going to stay with a 0. Now, let's look at this for just a moment, because I'm going to go back. You say sensitivity analysis. Okay. All right. If I don't open that plant, okay, I'm at 860. I mean, if I do a no-go with it. If I go with it, watch what happens to my cost. So I know I've got some sensitivity there. And I can just run that through and take the difference between the minimization. I can take the minimization cost, the minimal cost based on solver. I can go over here into the open or closed, okay, those binary choices. And I can literally see what it costs me or what I gain up or down in terms of a plant. Okay? And then the capacities for each of those. So again, this is load bearing, and we're trying to kind of figure that out. And the textbook illustrates that for us quite well. Again, it's one of those kinds of distribution problems that we run into. So that this is the one you'll want to upload as well. Okay. And close that off. I'll go back up here for a moment. And I'm going to go back over to the modules. All right. And I do appreciate, because I know I've gone over our time. I think we started a little early, so we're a little bit going over. And if you have to bug out and take off, feel free. If you do, or any of you, let me say this before we have a few final things I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap it up. Please, if you're driving or going home, please be safe. Take care of yourself. We want to see you come back. Okay. Now, I have some resources I want to tune you into on capital budgeting and refresh your memory, order and setup costs, and the Northwest Corner method. And then I showed you some information about jobs and logistics, supply chain, so forth, because these cases have really focused us in on these as well. Okay, and don't forget, you've got these 3 exams due. They're due on the 16th, which obviously is in 2 days. I think it's 5 p.m. Your open book, open neck, open book, open neck, open book, open note. All right. So we've gone through chapter 6 and chapter 7, and we've looked at distribution and network models over in chapter 6, okay, and explored those. And then over in chapter 7, okay, we've looked at binary problems, go or no go, 0 or 1, okay? And so we've incorporated those kinds of transportation issues in there. And let me say this, over in the textbook, I think, you know, they give you a nice 329 really summarizes conceptually what's going on there, where they talk about, and I'll see if we can pop us over there. We'll pop back here for a sec. Pardon me, it's 339. Wrong pew. My apologies. Oh, let's see. Well, that's not coming. Huh. Yeah, let's go to 340. Well, they didn't give us that. Over in 7.4. Strange. Okay. Well, nonetheless, if you've got a cloth text and this isn't concording out perfectly as I thought it would. Okay. Page 339. Well, okay. If you're using one of these books online, it's over on page 340. But they talk about multiple choice and mutually exclusive constraints, which is really the heart of all capital budgeting kinds of problems. It's either a go or a no-go, do it or defer it. And we have mutually exclusive, okay? And so, you know, we're making some assumptions about choices, and we have a multiple choice constraint. And this is pretty typical, okay, of a capital budgeting situation and the kinds of issues that companies run into all of the time, especially larger ones as firms become more mature, they tend to gravitate more and more to capital budgeting tools, use at fixed costs, heavier and greater fixed costs, okay? And to give you a good idea of that, let's take OBU. When I was a student at OBU, we had Thurman Hall, we had Shawnee, we had Kerr Dorm, we had the other dorm just south of there. We had what was then called Brotherhood Dorm. We had the Field House, and those apartments over there were brand new, okay? There was no Bailey Business Center. The Ford Music Hall was brand new. The art complex that's over there did not exist. Woods Science did not exist. So as OBU has matured, like most universities, they build buildings as programs grow and numbers of people come. And that's just typical, especially of institutions, okay? So, you know, these problems are quite relevant for us, okay, as we look at that issue of mutual exclusivity versus a multiple choice kind of situation where I'm trying to do some budgeting. Well, again, thank you so much. Please stay safe on your way home, and I'll see you back here next week, and week after next, excuse me. Enjoy your spring break. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your hard work. And don't forget all the stuff that's due. Get it turned in, and then go enjoy yourself. Thanks a lot, folks.